What was the I'm fired aren't I moment you experienced or witnessed? I was just having friendly chit chat with a guy at my new job with a work messaging app. Mostly talked about food and how he was always hungry. Just water cooler stuff. And then apparently his jealous GF read the messages and decided we were flirting. It eventually led to the both of them writing an email and sending it to my boss, accusing me of being inappropriate and using work tools to be inappropriate. I have barely worked here a month, so I thought I was going to get fired. Thankfully my boss realized how crazy dude and his GF is and I'm still here. Kinda turned off on being friendly to anyone else though. I walked into the prep area of the yogurt shop. I managed to find an employee humping the ice machine. He was just goofing off, but I had a sudden evil urge to play it crazy serious. I said, "Michael, that ice machine is company property and deserves your respect. I'm afraid I'm going to have to take disciplinary action." He literally hung his head and asked, "Will my parents find out?" It took me 10 minutes to convince the poor guy that I was just kidding and he wasn't in trouble. It was my first management job and I didn't fully understand that my authority came with a responsibility not to scare the employees. The first time a customer complained about me I was like 16 and for sure thought I was gonna lose my job. My boss walked over and said, "That lady is a freaking idiot. Don't worry." Sounds like a good boss. Company I worked for was losing money fast, and their employees' checks were bouncing. This was right around Halloween, so as a joke I went to work as a bounced check. The CEO got wind of an employee wearing a bounced check. He walked around the campus looking for me and found me in the warehouse chatting with some guys. 3 days later I was pulled into HR and my position was eliminated. 10/10 would do again. A+. I work in a company that is owned by a really large company. We have quite a few sister companies. Big industry thing. Got an email from a guy in a sister company that was meant to be sent to just a few people at his workplace, but he blasted it out to everyone in the corporate directory. Literally everyone. Thousands of people. It was this xenophobic joke that I can't even remember clearly, but something equating black kids to monkeys in the classroom. Nearly immediately after that he sent out another email apologizing for it, but I heard through the grapevine he was fired immediately along with one or two of the other people on the email. I appreciate the quotes around joke. Sounds like that fella got what he had coming to him. The video of Nintendo of Russia's CEO swearing while not realizing he was on live video. He walked up behind two people playing Mario Kart and somehow managed to miss the fact that they were playing Mario Kart competitively, that there was a camera pointed at them, and that multiple people pointed out that they were on live video. So this Mario Kart live stream has the CEO in the background cursing at his employees for being incompetent. In addition, he's apparently really bad at economics and lost the company a lot of money by refusing to stock a game and running out of units to sell, along with being accused of gender-based harassment. I have no idea if he was actually fired, though. He hasn't been fired, but Nintendo is doing an investigation. I would not be surprised if they do fire him though. Co-worker while being caught not performing count procedures at a prison. All that was required of the officer was to walk past 84 cells and confirm breathing bodies. Rank comes down to see where count was, finds co-worker sleeping in supply closet, attempts to wake Jigger having already failed. Rank then finds the officer's already completed count sheet in his lap, meaning it was filled out in advance, which is grounds to be immediately fired. A co-worker just hangs his head and starts grabbing his belongings before being escorted out. I was working as a manager for a parking garage at a hospital in my early 20s. Supervising the valet crew was part of my job. A lot of the valet guys were either 20 somethings without much direction or 60 plus guys working a job in semi-retirement. One of the older fellas mistook the gas pedal for the brake while trying to drive a heavily modified transport bus, modified with lifts, gurney strapping points, etc. He totaled 6 cars before the bus finally came to a stop. I ran towards it thinking he was probably hurt. Before I got there he hopped out of the bus, shook his head and looked at me. So, I'm probably fired, right? I don't remember what the final total was on the insurance claim, but yes, he was fired. I really want to see a video of this. I don't think my imagination is doing it justice at all. I spoke out in a clearing meeting. It's a safe space about all the upper level hiring and blatant lack of promotions coming from a consultant who was handpicking all these new hires. I was fired a couple weeks later for unclear reasons. Eat a dong, go pro. At the time, my job was testing the front end of a large billing database. Manager told me to test on beta. At the time, I thought of beta as a staging environment with mock data, not an alternative front end to our production database, which it never should have been. When I test, I always use obviously fake numbers. So here I am, in a production DB, making bills. And anyway, the next week a real life customer wanted to know why he had a bill for $420.69. Surprisingly, I didn't get fired at that point. I was 16 and working in a Chinese restaurant. I went to put soy sauce on a table for 2 customers who were waiting for their food. The sauce slid off my tray and onto the interior of one of the customers' leather jacket. It went everywhere. He was really nice about it, and in the end my boss just made fun of me for about a month. I was working the cash register at a pet store about 2 weeks after starting when a woman came up, bawling that her dog just died and she was returning all of these medical supplies, all small but expensive items from the same aisle. Not that I knew that at the time, without a receipt. Every time I tried to say something, she would just bawl harder. I felt terrible, so I returned them, gave cash or a gift or something. A week later, I get called into the office, and my manager informs me that she stole those items, and then returned them to make money. Needless to say, I wasn't there long. I hated that place. People get mad when nothing can be done without a receipt, but that's the exact reason why they ask for a receipt. Don't feel bad though, it's easy to do and even retail vets do it. I was working at my parents' convenience store and a lady came in demanding to see the owners and that she would be having many words with them. All because I made her pay for her gas before she got it. We do this for everyone. So I tell her she can call them from my phone since they were at home. She screams at me some more about seeing them tomorrow in person and leaves. I tell my parents while expecting them to laugh it off. And sure enough their exact words were, "Oh, that lady's a freaking psycho, haha, just ignore her." Never saw that lady again and she never called them. I got a job designing refueling trucks for airports when I was 20. I knew how to draw things and weld a little, but that was it. I made it about 3 years before we got bought by another company with real engineers. I fricked up often. I don't even recall what it was this time. Probably just something not fitting at all. But I got fired. I knew it as soon as they asked me to come to the office. I still see trucks I designed when I travel. It's an odd industry with very little competition. It was like working at Monster Garage. Considering my lack of any qualifications, I think I managed to pull off some crazy crap. I still see trucks I designed when I travel. I'm imagining the car Homer Simpson designs but with a fuel hose. I worked for the property management company I rented from. When I moved out, they thanked me for renewing my lease and asked me to leave an anonymous review. I did, and I expressed several complaints I had as a renter. Massive urine stain, broken light switches, absurd mandatory $30 filter delivery program that delivered the wrong size of filter, and unresponsive property manager who addressed none of these issues all year, etc. After submitting my anonymous review, my boss emailed me asking me if I left the review. It had my address, name, phone number, and email listed. I was amazed when I wasn't fired right then and there. I trained the new guy 3 months later and was let go when I finished training him. I now make $6 more an hour and never have to use my time off pay to fill in the shortage of hours. My boss made a terrorist joke about me and I said, "At least I get 72 wives instead of losing one to some butthole I don't even know." He was going through a divorce. I still think it was worth it. If you're going to make an edgy joke, you should be ready to receive one back. I worked as a shift manager at an auto parts store. Long story short, I reported a guy distributing drugs from the store to the store manager and police. 2 days later an auditor came in from regional and started accusing me of stealing, and I was so confused, and next thing I know I'm resigning under duress for something I never did. Turns out everyone was in on it and I ruined their gig. I was young and raised in a pretty sheltered home, so I had always assumed adults had integrity. This was my second job. I was 19, working as a housekeeper in a resort for about 3 months. It was one of the last rooms we had to clean for the day and it was completely trashed. Was so tired and overwhelmed with everything I forgot to clean the rubbish bins. My manager came through and double checked everything and found what I had forgotten and proceeded to give me the longest lecture of my life. That's not what got me fired. She pinned a bunch of her frick ups on me. Like how once I was cleaning a room with her and she didn't check a blanket folded up in a cupboard because nobody uses them anyway and the next guest found a used condom in it. Or how she completely missed a room when assigning us ours and it never got cleaned. Horrid old cow. At my last firm, I made a mistake that basically cost $30k. The partner chewed me out a bit and showed me how I had fricked up, but then at the end, he just said, "Now I bet you'll never make that mistake again." Basically he figured that they taught me a very expensive lesson. Might as well get their money's worth. Well, I've been forgetting to do thank you notes for new clients for the past 2 months, so I might be in it now. I still have 4 hours in the day, so we'll see. Mayo. I am still employed. No actual discussion about it has happened, but if I was going to get fired it would have been today. A coworker accidentally dropped a database table for a major multi-million-dollar client. There is no part of the job where we'd ever need to use a drop command, but he did it all the same. Imagine going to a company like Amazon and just wrecking their site for a few hours. That's big money. Fortunately for him, he was just moved to customer relations since everyone loved him even if he was a dum-dum. Fortunately for us, I created a backup of the database before he started because I didn't have the highest confidence in him, which is also probably why I'm now a manager. Haha. I was the third key who locked up for the night at a coffee shop. I'd cleaned the place and put away this crock pot on top of the freezer for the night. One night, the power cord from the crock pot shut in the freezer door when I left. The door popped open during the night and all its contents melted out on the floor. I made a change to our McAfee account where I applied the EEPC, endpoint encryption, tag to all computers that didn't have it. I had been forgetting to do so as I was going and wanted to cover my tracks. 2 weeks later my boss asked who was making changes, and when I confessed she said, "Congratulations, you just encrypted our SQL servers." Foo up me. I was 15 or 16 coming in for my third ever shift at a pizza joint. I was stoned in the way you can only be as a 10th grader, where you're thinking that you're sly but everyone can tell because you smell like weed, cheap body spray and have Cheeto dust around your mouth. I smoked a blunt like 10 minutes before coming in, and as I started putting my gloves on my manager came up and said, "Hey man, go talk to F in the back. He needs to give you your new hire drug test." I was freaking out. I had just gotten my first car and needed the money, so I started sweating it thinking I was gonna get booted. Right as I went to knock on the owner's office door and accept my fate, everyone started laughing at me and telling me it was a joke. That's how I found out all my co-workers smoked weed. Happened about 20 minutes ago. I messaged our CEO saying that our benefits are crap. Swore I'd be gone. He agreed and told me to look into it more with HR. Go figure. My boss hadn't paid me for over 2 months, so at one point I demanded the money to be on my bank account by the next day, or else I'd sue them. I received my final pay the next day and I got rid of that awful job at the same time. You shouldn't have told them before suing. Could have filed them over and won more money at the same time. She accidentally started to delete the law firm's entire database and didn't tell anyone about it. What got her fired is that she wouldn't fully say what happened. Even if a story was 100% true, there's no way of fully believing her because she constantly makes up excuses for when she messes up. Nothing was ever her fault. I really feel bad, but apparently our boss had other issues with her, so this just made him not want her here anymore. This happened yesterday and we have 2 people interviewing today. I used to work at Forever 21. One day I was in the bathroom and overheard 2 of my managers talking crap about an employee and saying that they're going to let him go soon. I went and told the guy to watch out, that they might be firing you soon. Word quickly spread. I get called in the manager's office, back room, and she says that she overheard that I'm telling people lies. Shocked, I looked at her and said, no, I heard you say what you said. I'm not crazy, and don't pretend I am. Don't talk about private things in non-private places. I thought I was going to get fired right there. She just said, okay, that will be all. Classic attempt at gaslighting there. Working in a bar, one of the evening staff come in, having evidently been out all afternoon drinking, and from knowing them, likely doing coke and pills too, they immediately aggressively insulted one of the bar's best customers, good friend of the landlord, and then looked at me. Their face dropped. All I said was, leave, and spoke to the landlady lord later. He was sent a message not to come back. My first day welding professionally, I ruined a $65,000 door. Told my boss ABD showed him the issue. I just looked sane to his face. ABD said, I'll go grab my tools. Thanks for the chance to work for you. He just laughed and told me to grab the prints and start building a new door. We ended up fixing the door. Growing up, I used to coach gymnastics before my own practice. At the time I was roughly 14, and the kids that I coached were 8-10. It was basically make all these hyper kids tired. You have 45 minutes, and can use all this cool equipment here. Key thing there is that I was not an adult. Anyway, one child in particular was peculiar. He would eat the chalk, physically harass other kids, cut lines, not do his push-ups, cry at the littlest things. I could go on. One day I lost it. About 5 minutes into the session I screamed at the kid and made him sit in a corner, facing the corner. 15 minutes later I realized his mother was watching from the observation area upper floor. I was sure she would do any of the following. 1. Demand a refund. 2. Complain about me. 3. Claim her child is flawless. Practically the messiah. Nope. She thanked me for disciplining her child, while glad not to be in any trouble. My only real thought was, lady, that is your job. Walking into work on Monday morning after drunk texting a picture of my butt to my boss. Luckily for me, he thought it was freaking hilarious. When I was a teen, I took an overnight seasonal stocking job at Walmart. I had never been forced to stay up overnight and didn't realize how much I wasn't prepared. The first night flew by but couldn't sleep when I got home, so I went into night 2 with no sleep. Struggled through and got home but couldn't sleep or barely slept. Night 3 I was done for. Around 1 AM I just said F it, and the little area where they keep bouncy balls, I buried myself in there. They have to individually sticker toys, so they called me to come get a pallet and I was nowhere to be found. They basically had a search party looking for me when someone made a complaint she saw someone's legs sticking out from where I burrowed into. The manager woke me up and I kinda said yeah I am fired and walked away. He never said it, so maybe I'm still employed from 11 years ago. At my last workplace there was a literal emergency button that shut off the servers. It was a financial company and I worked in IT. One night a worker pressed the button. Not sure if it could have been accidental. It was pretty well labeled, and like half the IT department had to drive in the middle of the night to fix it. People were very pissed the next morning. None of the managers would give out the name of the person though, for obvious reasons, so no one knew if they got fired or not. Not my story, but my friends. They were working on an archaeological dig site when someone in the team managed to cut through the electricity mains cables. They miraculously didn't hurt themselves, but all of their power goes and they soon realize the adjacent town's power has gone too. The site supervisor calls the company in charge of the electricity grid and gets himself very worked up. When the grid guy arrives and asks what happened, the site supervisor explains it to him and he nods thoughtfully before saying, if that's what happened, I have to do a lot of paperwork and someone somewhere gets into big trouble. I'll ask you again and you say squirrels appear to have chewed through the cable. So, what happened here? Supervisor replies that squirrels appear to have chewed through the cable. Grid guy writes that down and they get on with fixing it. Boss came to me one day. He says he wants to show me something. He shows me a gate I've welded badly. This wasn't the first one I had messed up without realizing it, and I could tell he was going to shout at me about it. All I said was, am I gone then? And he said yes. In fairness to him, I was given 2 weeks notice and a huge chunk of unclaimed holiday pay as well. My last payslip had over $1,000 before tax on it. This actually happened about 15 or 16 years ago when I was teen. I used to work at CVS. and one of the cashier's duties were to develop film. Back when people still use 35mm cameras. Man, that makes me feel old. Anyway, this kid Brent also worked there. He always seemed kind of like a delinquent, but I had never seen him do anything too off the wall until this one girl brought in some film one day. He developed it and she had some pretty revealing bikini pics in some of them. Well, Brent decided to make multiple prints of them and the one pharmacist in the back found out somehow and told the store manager. I wonder what you're doing these days, Brent. I was in a meeting with some co-workers, the boss, and this new lady from another agency. She starts throwing out buzzwords like proactive and paradigm and I say, aren't those words that dumb people use to sound important? Not that I'm accusing you of anything like that. I was fired on the spot. Don't think of it as being fired. Just think of it as them proactively shifting their paradigms. When my company's IT director sent me a copy of the DMCA notice they got because of me, I was using my personal laptop at work and forgot to close out BitTorrent before leaving home one day. I promptly resigned before they could fire me. My boss made a 5 or so foot long sub for a catering event he had later in the day. He put it in a container and told me to bring it to his car. I held it, as a normal person would. I at least thought, with one hand around the second foot and one around the fourth foot of it. Well, the middle caved in and more than half of it fell. Everywhere. All of that meat on the ground. All of that meat. Well anyway, one of my boss's family members was there that day and she tried her best to keep his head from exploding. Took almost a week for that normally friendly man to look me in the eyes without wanting to scream. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.